Hari Verzens, and welcome to In My Garden. Today is Friday, April 3rd, and it is a windy one. Those spring winds are kicking up, and I'd like to show you how things are moving along here. So we might as well start off with the forsythia. As you can see, the flowers or the petals are falling, and the leaves are emerging. And so once these yellow flowers are gone, it's going to just be green for the rest of the season. But it offers a nice privacy, kind of good as a hedge, at least for the time when it has leaves. And I've started to root some of it, so hopefully it'll take root and I can share it with friends. And some friends shared some plants from their garden this week, and so I wanted to show you that. I have a few more I'm going to plant here. These are from Joy Gardner, who is one of my coworkers at Citizens, and this is burning bush. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these on the property in fall. Those are the bushes you see everywhere that are just vibrant red. So it's exciting to have these. I've put them several different places around here. I've got one up here on the edge of my fence and a couple along this bank here. So I'm thinking that'll offer a nice bit of privacy and color as people pull up the driveway here. And I put another one right here next to this pine tree, which actually was our first Christmas tree ever. It's a little segue. Side note, this was actually about this tall as a Christmas tree when my family and I lived in that tiny house. And we planted it, and it's pretty neat to see it grow. So, this burning bush is going to kind of fill this area in. And I planted some more along the tiny house at the top there. So thanks, Joy. And I'm going to give Joy some plants here, and that's a wonderful thing for gardeners. We love to share plants. So last week I showed you the lilacs were forming their blossoms here. They're getting much closer to flowering. The color is really beautiful. And another coworker, I might have mentioned this last time, but another coworker had suggested that I deadhead these to get more blossoms, and that was Melissa Goodson. And she was right. It made all the difference. I have a whole lot more this year. So basically what I did was just take it down to where the next branch or little buds are forming and just cut it. And I did that for the whole plant back in fall, everywhere, trimmed it back, and that really helped. This white one is covered in flowers. So my guess is maybe next week we'll really see them, and they'll be so fragrant. So a couple weeks ago, I was cleaning out the herb garden right at the entrance to the garden, and I noticed that the garlic chives were sort of spreading everywhere because I let them flower last year. They're beautiful flowers, but then that turned into more, and I don't really want them to take over that bed. So I dug them up and moved them up here. And this is a bank that, could erode and be a problem. And so what I focus on with this kind of area of the landscaping is perennials. And knowing that these want to grow and want to spread, this is a perfect place for them because I can just leave them and they'll come back year after year. And so I dug those little starts up and just spread them out right here, and expect this to be a nice little garlic chive patch. And on the rest of the bank, you can see here is comfrey coming up, which has been such a great plant for me. Again, it's perennial, and I can divide it out and spread it, and it just wants to grow. It doesn't need much at all, and it's great for keeping this bank held back. And it puts out beautiful purple flowers, and the bees love it. You'll see that later this year. Another thing I did this week was dig up this catnip, which is here in this planter, and some here. I put that there last year. And I did mention this loves to grow, so you want to be careful with it. But, I'm trying to not spend a ton of money, so if I pick up pull the plants out of the garden that want to grow and put them somewhere else, then they're serving good purpose. And you saw me a few weeks ago clearing out all the old growth on these perennials here, and now the new growth is coming up. And so you can see that this is going to be all filled in with lemon balm here, and at the far end, mountain mint and dianthus, which puts up a beautiful red flower right there, all perennials. So it's great to do those kind of plants along an area like this that you don't want to have to dig up every year. So I really like this little area, and it's beautiful to be able to sit on the tiny house porch and look up at the pretty flowers and perennials. And then up here, we planted these forsythia, like I just stuck them straight in the ground. So we're going to watch that and see what happens there if anything decides to grow. And here's the burning bush that Joy gave me right there. So I think that's a great spot to give some privacy down here and a little structure to this area. So this week I planted seeds, and this first section here, I made some notes here because if you plant a lot, you'll forget what's where. So it's good to keep track. And as I plant a row, I actually stop and write it down because I'll forget. And here I did a row of radishes, and then spinach, and then beets, and then lettuce, and then another type of lettuce, 2 types of lettuce here. So hopefully they'll come up. I came out every morning and watered it. I noticed there was an animal in here, so hopefully, they didn't totally mess up my plan. Just got to keep watering it and hoping. The next section, I put these 2 stakes for myself to know where it was, and even in my journal I kind of drew a picture of the stakes. And then here I did a pack of wildflower seeds just to feed the bees and the pollinators, and to have some beauty that's nice and visible from the porch there. And then the next spot, I did a row of spinach and lettuce here as well. And then right along here, I planted some onion sets. And then this whole section out here, from this little garlic volunteer to that board, is onion sets. And this year I wasn't going to do any onions at all. And my plan changed quickly, as everything's changing so quickly these days, and realized that I do need to do more food than I thought. And so I'm glad that I can do that, and that I was able to find onion sets at Slaughter's. So thank you, Slaughter's. And looking forward to seeing those come up. I did red onion sets and yellow. So that's what's here. So it's been tough this week having put seeds in the ground. They need to stay moist to germinate. And I've come out several times and watered, several times a day. And when I get back out, the top of the soil is just dry. You can even see the cracks here. With this wind, it's just drying it right out. And so I'm concerned that, it might be hard for these seeds, there's one right there, to germinate at all. So a friend of mine, actually, Darby, who is Adam's wife, we spoke with Adam last week at the Floyd Eco Village, she suggested to me to just put some row cover on top of it to hold that moisture in. So I'm going to try that. Oh, what was that? A bird! I thought it was a bat. You weren't rolling, were you?
I rolled that. I caught that.
I think there's bird nest in my row cover. It's very insulated for that nest. Good idea. Well, we'll see if I can get enough for other stuff here. It's quite a jumbled mess in here. So this stuff is it's good for protecting plants from lots of pests that fly around and eat your plants. I forget which one that was, especially the, I put the name out of my head because I didn't like those guys. So this is the row cover, and I bought this several years ago to protect my brassica crops from the cabbage looper, which is quite the pest. It's a beautiful kind of moth, I guess, white moth, but its larvae love to eat kale or broccoli, especially broccoli, cabbage. And so if you cover it, then those moths or butterfly, I think they're moths, can't get to it. But in this case, I'm just using Darby's suggestion, and I'm actually fighting the wind right now to cover this stuff, what I planted, to keep it moist. I'm just trying to stretch it out for now. I think I might have to tell Fox to turn off the camera and help me. So here's all my different drawings of the beds that I seeded. I always put the date there. And it'd be hard for anybody else to understand what I've done here, but I know what it means, and it'll definitely help me to know when I planted things and what's what. So I always try to stop what I'm doing and jot things down. So I really like to see the water hit the soil, but I'm just trusting that it's working. And you are supposed to get rain through this row cover, so it looks like it's working. So I thank Darby Jewel for this little tip here. Hopefully it helps these seeds germinate. And hopefully this wind will die down. I'm not a fan of the wind. I still haven't dug out my spray nozzle for the season, so my finger is my spray nozzle. It gets kind of cold. But the snap peas are poking up out of the ground, so that's exciting. I like to come back in here and just make sure this mulch and leaves aren't covering them up. I don't know if it matters that much, but I like to keep them happy. So I'm still waiting to hear back from the extension office with my soil test results, and I haven't gotten compost in or anything. So I've got this liquid fertilizer. It's got biostimulant in it, which makes me wonder if maybe it would qualify as an inoculant, like I was talking with Adam at the Eco Village about. But I figured since I have it, I just followed the directions for vegetable crops, and I've just been putting like a splash in here and just like getting everything one time with it, at least at the beginning here, to hopefully give them a boost. So putting a tiny splash in there and then the rest water. It smells like seaweed. So my cat likes it, which is not good. That might be who got out in the garden too and dug stuff. So just as Fox was on his way over to do the shooting for this episode, Joy Gardner, who gave me the burning bush last week, texted me and said she had just finished watching episode 1, and if I had any extra garlic chives, she'd love some. Well, it just so happens that I have plenty, and I realize now that they like to grow and spread. And I said, well, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and just trying to decide which one I'm digging out to give her. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take this one. And I'm just getting my fork down below, just pushing it down below the roots as best I can, and then lifting them, and that clump should come right out. I just had my ring fixed by Floyd Jewelry. Now they're going to see why it looked so bad. I just wear it everywhere. It's a good root system there. It's coming loose though. Here we go. So, let's see. Now when
got your first kill there.
There we go.
How do you feel?
It feels good. And you know, I could take all these little leaves that came off and rinse them and cook with them. I'm actually making baked potatoes tonight, so they would be great, you know, just chives on your potatoes. A little more work because they've got a lot of dirt and debris mixed in, but good to not waste. Put that in a pot for her. I went and got these pots out of the shed. That's not gonna work. Okay. How's that? That was fun. So I carry this basket around with me when I come down to the garden, and I try to remember to keep everything I need in it. Of course, my garden journal, the seeds that are in season, that if I find a spot or decide to get busy with that, I've got them available. My gloves, which would ideally be on my hands. My clippers, which I like to have right next to me because it's good to be able to take care of things in the moment. Some sunscreen and a couple pens because you never know when they're going to run out of ink. And I've got more seeds here just to remind myself, like in this bag, this is what comes next. And so, you know, this is like what's right now, and then this is like in the next few weeks, and just what I've already planted to keep track of what's going on and look back. Because, you know, these, like I mentioned before, the seed packets have a lot of information on them. So if I have them in my basket, I can look back on them easily. Sometimes my basket gets a little too full and I have to go through it just like a purse or anything else. So, and of course, you want to have your water. So after my conversation with Adam Bressa out at the Eco Village farm, I've been thinking a lot about volunteers in the garden and how I want to handle them. You know, if they're not causing any problems, then why not? As Adam said, just let them go. But, you know, if you do just let them be volunteers, then you're not really able to be in charge of what's growing where or know that you can actually cultivate a bed because this area here, I let the cilantro go to seed and it's all coming up here. These are all cilantro seedlings, which is awesome because I don't have to buy cilantro seeds or do the work of germinating them and keeping them healthy. They're just growing on their own. And this right here, I'm going to harvest this week and actually cook with it. And this is practically, you know, one bunch of cilantro that you would get at the store. And I can just cut it off right here and it'll grow back. So I'll just cut that off, and then when these get big enough, cut them off and just keep going around. And I should be, until it gets too hot and the cilantro starts to bolt, which is go to seed, I should be able to get my cilantro from this area. So I decided I'm going to let this be cilantro and so go with the volunteer in this area. But I do want to take Adam's lead and try to cultivate rather than weed with my stirrup hoe and my rakes and things, and just disturb the soil in other places when these seedlings start to come up. And so, like, for example, down here, you know, pulling this out is considered weeding, obviously, because I've got to weed. But if I just come in here and do this, then I'm cultivating. And so I want to focus more on managing my weeds that way this year, which means I can't really worry too much about the volunteer seedlings unless it's just a certain patch like that cilantro. So that's how I plan to do it. and we'll see if I can keep up with that. It's definitely getting ahead of me already. So this week I'm going to go ahead and rake this bed out and get these seedlings before they start to grow. There's another tiny little area here that is dill, and I can see some of the dill coming up. I've started to learn what the seedlings look like as they emerge. Then I'll let them grow, but otherwise I'm going to just rake it out and put some, I am actually soon going to do potatoes, and I've been rooting sweet potatoes. And like I said, I wasn't going to do any of this. I was just going to do a lot of flowers this year. So my whole plan has changed. So I didn't order sweet potato slips. I went online to order them, and they were mostly sold out. So I think there's a lot of people getting back into their gardens, which is a great side benefit to what's happening now. So I'll show you how I'm trying to grow my own slips in the shed and show you my seedlings that are getting started in there. And hopefully next week I'll show you how my beds are nicely raked. This stuff starts off really dry. It's a seed starter. And so I need to pour some water in and kind of let it absorb the moisture before I put it in these seed trays. Just to make it go a little further, I'm adding some just regular potting soil to it. And that has a lot more moisture in it. Actually, I think I'm going to get another bucket and kind of pour it back and forth to mix it. That's a lot of seed trays ready to go. All right, so here's my exciting new shipment of seeds from Territorial Seed Company. I don't need to start all of these just yet. Some of these I'm going to direct sow, but I am going to go ahead and start my jalapenos because they need quite a while to get big enough by about June when I'll put them out into the garden. So make sure I got them all. There they are. They're early jalapeno. I love to plant these. We actually use jalapenos as a condiment. I pickle them and we eat them with eggs. Of course, we love tacos, so they go really well with that. Gives a little kick and salt to a meal. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop these in, one in each little section. This particular tray is called a Speedling tray, and I've had it for several years. It's made of styrofoam. Ooh, that guy shouldn't be here. And it is great. The shape of it makes them like not have much shock when it comes to transplanting. They pop right out of here like in a cone shape and go right in the garden. It's great. The root structure doesn't have any kind of shock when you take it out. So I love this thing. One of our local garden experts, in my opinion, is Will Basin, and he told me about these trays. So now we're in the shed, and this place has been quite a respite for me over the years. When I lived in the tiny house, I would come out to this same spot with my seedlings and just stare at them and will them to grow. And it was actually a way for me to have a little solitude from my family. So I do like coming out here. These lights are just regular fluorescent lights, but they do a good job to help the seedlings grow. These are the peppers that we planted last week, or is that now 2 weeks ago? Right? 2 weeks ago. So they're doing great. They're even starting to show, these are the seed leaves here, but in the center they're starting to show some true leaves coming out. So they'll stay here until they have like 4 or more true leaves, and then I'll transplant them into bigger pots. They'll need to stay in the shed until like June because peppers like it really hot. But they're all jalapenos, and I plan to put them, lots of them in the ground and then share them, the rest of them. And here's what I was saying. I'm trying to grow my own sweet potato slips since they are sold out. And so far, so good. Just basically put some toothpicks in them and put them in water. And you can see that there's one starting right there. What will happen is it will just grow what they call slips, which will be leaves and a root system, and you just pluck it off and plant that, and that's what will grow the sweet potato. So sweet potatoes grow differently than white potatoes, where you just actually put the white potato in the ground and it grows. Sweet potatoes don't grow that way. So we actually have to get the slips going. There, that one's got, there's one starting and there's one. So, and since really they will go in the ground, you know, maybe in June, late May or early June. So we've got a couple months to get them going in here. Hopefully that'll happen. Oh, and I did want to show you something that is really fun for me, a little way I kind of got around spending some money. You know, you can buy these heat mats. We saw them at the Eco Village. But they can be pricey, and so I kind of created my own. So what I have are 2 hotel trays, sheet trays, and one's on the bottom, one's on the top, and then inside are Christmas lights. And they're the halogen kind, so they put off a good amount of heat. And then I had to actually take the temperature because it got really hot. And my husband has one of these thermal cameras, so I was able to shoot it right at this area to kind of get the temperature of the soil. And I knew that the peppers like to germinate around like 80 to 90 degree soil. So I played with the bulbs, unscrewing them until I got the temperature to be where it needed to be to germinate the peppers. So that was pretty fun. But once they germinated, I went ahead and turned it off because it was getting, I think, maybe too hot. I didn't want to kill the plants. So that was fun. This is the most fun thing in spring. It's just looking for the changes. And I discovered something. I didn't think they started to open yet, but there's the beginning of the lilacs. There's nothing like that fragrance. There's another one way up there that's starting to flower out. Can you see it? It's pretty amazing. When I put these in the ground, they were just little shoots like these down here. I got them off of another property, dug them up, and planted them here. And that was about 8 years ago. So these are easy to share with friends as well.